so I'm here with a 60 grit belt, and now I'm just kind of getting the flats flattened out. I'm going to get all these forging marks out. So I'm going to kind of document a little bit of the grinding. I'm not going to get too crazy with it because I know it's kind of boring to watch, but I do want to get it documented. Alright, so I got my flats past all the forging marks. One side was a little bit worse than the other, so I lost a little bit of the bevel, but it actually put the bevel more in the center, so that's good news. I got the tang roughly shaped. That's still going to have to get thinned down after I do the file work behind the ricasso. So the next step, we're going to start laying in the bevels with the 60 grit belt, and the clip point I am going to do by hand with a file, because I always screw it up on the belt sander. Alright, so the bevels are laid down with 60 grit. Now I'm going to swap over to 120 and do some finer cutting. Alright, so here it is. It's ground down to 120 grit, and I did go ahead and use the belt sander to get these started, but I'm going to finish them off by hand because the false edge on top is a little lumpy. So I'm going to finish that off by hand, but the bevels and the flats feel pretty good. So far I'm happy with that. A little bit of wonkiness right up in here, but I think I'll be able to get that out when I clean up the plunge lines a little bit with some hand sanding. So yeah, so far so good. Seems like we're on the right track. Looks like I gotta do some tang shaping in here. Got a couple of fat spots that might hinder getting a handle on it, but we'll focus on the tang shortly enough. So, all right, here it is off the belt sander, 120 grit, and I'm ready to start doing some hand sanding and some shaping on the false edge up top. So, all right, so I'm over here now. I'm going to flatten out these bevels for the false edge on top. This file. Then it'll be ready for some hand sanding. And I'll probably work on that throughout the week. So. Alright, so here's one side of the blade. This is pretty much off the belt sander at 120 grit. I got the false edge or the clip cleaned up with the file, hand sanded to 150. Over here on this side, I got the flats kind of roughly sanded to 150, and I just started sanding on the bevels, and the same thing on the false edge. I got it straightened out with files and hand sanded to 150. So yep, now starts the long drawn out process of hand sanding this and getting it to a point where I can get it heat treated. Alright, so everything's jigged up in my file guide, and I am just doing some filing just behind the ricasso. I'm just filing down a step for the that'll give the handguard something to seat up against on the back of the ricasso, and avoid any kind of gapping between the between the handguard and the ricasso. And I've also thinned down the tang quite a bit on the belt sander, so just doing some file work here. You really can't see it, so I'll just wait to show you. My file guide is not hardened, so I gotta take care not to cut up into the back of the ricasso. And it's probably going to be less than a 1/16 of an inch on the little step down from the back of the ricasso down to the tang. So it doesn't take much just to ensure you don't see any kind of gapping. And I have this thinned down. I'm going to start to put threads on the tang as well. So that's where we're at so far, just doing some tang work. And I have a mic here, and I'm going to kind of bring this micrometer all the way up to the front. Just kind of snug it down. Then I'm going to work it back and make sure that everything is tapers as it goes back. So it's a little bit fat right in here. I'll probably take that back over to the belt sander and get that straight real quick. I can feel it drag pretty tight right there. I'll take care of this little section right in here, and like right in here, and this tang will be about done. I'll focus up in this area right here. And I'll take a little bit off of both sides. Should probably do it. I'll check it with the mic. We'll come back up here, all the way up behind the ricasso. Yep, that little bit just took care of the last little bit of wonkiness or bulge there. Ooh, that's nice and tight up there, and as I go back, it's a nice taper. So I'm going to go ahead and get the threading the tang, and the tang work will be mostly done for right now. Alright, so I got a little shot of oil on it, and right now I have a 1/4 28, and my threads are not going to be 1/4 28. What I'm doing here is the threads are not round, and I'm going to get a die that is actually slightly larger than the section I prepared for the threads, and seeing how it's oblong, I feel a drag only on the top and the bottom as I turn it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to cut down the top and bottom, get this as round as possible. Then I'm going to switch to a smaller size die and probably cut the threads. Now what size that's going to be, I don't know yet. It really doesn't matter because I have a whole die set down here, and no matter where the threads wind up being, where I get a nice round thread that's smaller than the tang, I would just use the tap that goes along with the die when I go to tap the pommel. So most of the time with a tang this thick, it winds up being around, what is it, 12-30 seconds. The size just under 1/4 20, so that's probably more than likely where we're going to wind up. Sometimes I don't hit it just right, and I have to dip into the metrics, and I've had to tap them like 6 mil or 5 mil. It really doesn't matter. I'm just cutting this down until it gets nice and round, and truth of the matter is, it really doesn't even have to be nice and round. You can actually just do threads on the top and threads on the bottom, and you'll have threads on the side that aren't cut that deep, and it will still lock the pommel in just fine. So that is what we're doing. This is pretty boring, so I will shut you off and I'll bring it back when the final thread is cut. Alright, so I got the tang threads cut. Final thread wound up being 10-30 seconds. So I went quarter 28 to 6 mil to 10-30 seconds, and now I got a nice round set of threads there to accept the pommel. So next we got to think about what we're going to be doing for a pommel, and also what we're going to be doing for setting up the D-guard. So I'm going to contemplate that, find me a piece of steel to forge the D-guard out of, and find me a piece of steel that we're going to use to make the pommel. So hold on. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up this video here. This is pretty much the grind. Got the belt grinding done. I got it hand sanded to kind of like a preliminary 150. We got some ricasso work done in here, behind the ricasso, to the tang I should say. A little bit of a shoulder here to hide any kind of gapping I might get when I go to seat the handguard. The tang has been threaded, has been sized and tapered, so that's all ready to go. Next we have to get on to forging the handguard and making the pommel, because when I do the handguard, I'm going to have to do some hot work with the handguard and the knife together to seat everything. So I can't do any kind of heat treat or anything until I get at least that portion of the handguard set up. And when I get that portion of the handguard set up, then yeah, we'll be ready for heat treat, which is going to incorporate the hamon that we're going to do. So, but as far as right now, we're going to consider the grind done. We'll come back, of course, with some hand sanding and polishing after the fact, and we'll take a second look at how thick the blade is going to be, because I don't want a giant secondary bevel on the edge of the blade. So it may have to go back on the belt sander. I'm not sure yet. It's coming in right around a 1/16 of an inch, so I'm going to try to hand sand that down thinner after the heat treat. It's going to be a little bit of work, but it's going to save me from running the risk of boogering the blade on the belt sander. So I think it'll be worth the extra time, just to ensure that I don't booger it and then I spend a bunch of time, you know, trying to chase out a booger that I put in it after the heat treat. So I'm just kind of doing that, kind of a little bit of an insurance policy. So if this wasn't going to be such a nice build, then I probably would go straight to the belt sander and take my chances. But yeah, we're not going to do that on this one. We're going to play it safe. Yep, so we're going to knock off here, and when we get back on the part 3 of the Towns Bowie build-off, we're going to be forging the handguards. So wrap up part 2, stay tuned for part 3, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one.